What up, fam? Hit that like, hit that subscribe. The Sixers landed Paul George and some others. We're going to be talking about it. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to A2D Radio. It's a little special edition, Sixers free agency news. Obviously, you wouldn't come on unless you landed a big doggy, which we did in Paul George. We bring Kelly Oubre back, Andre Drummond in the house, Eric Gordon. So obviously some moves early on as NBA free agency hit last night at 6 o'clock. Me and Greg were on agree disagree last night. Obviously, Daryl wouldn't allow that to be easy and let us get Paul George then. We had to wait until the early morning, but we're here to talk about that. That's Luke Brown. That's Heel Chrome. I'm Tom Arnone. Who's next for the Sixers? Who's next in their plans? Sixers sign Paul George. They also extend Tyrese Maxey, which is a home run as well, but it all ties into our poll question. You can vote on it. Paul George is the missing piece the Sixers needed to dethrone the Celtics in the East. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, that's where we're live. And everywhere you get your podcasts, we're there as well. Hit the like, subscribe, follow. Most importantly, join the conversation. Listen, from what's out there, yeah, he was the missing piece. He was a star. I mean, obviously you have to add on an entire roster that have thrown the NBA champions, but I'll agree that that's the missing piece to a great start of that, right? And some of the other moves they've made are had me trending to, hey, we can play with the Celtics, right? Oubre back, love that signing. Drummond back as a backup big. Eric Gordon, such a low risk, high reward deal. Doesn't matter. Paul George, obviously a big time addition to this basketball team. So, I'll agree. I'll agree this is the piece that they needed. One, because this is the only piece that was out there that you could get. Honestly, everything else is going to probably cost you way too much draft capital and players you don't have to trade. So with what was out there, listen, he's better than Tobias Harris. We know that one. He's better than James Harden. We know that one. So I'll go out on a limb here and say, yeah, I mean, this gets us closer. Do I think we're as good as the Celtics right now? No. We have a lot more work to do, but this definitely gets them closer. So I'll agree that this missing piece, the biggest missing piece is Joel Embiid staying healthy. So that's one we already know. So without that, the rest doesn't matter, right? Okay, Paul George doesn't matter unless Joel Embiid is healthy. So on that, I'll agree under that assumption right there that he has to be healthy. So what do you guys say?
Yeah, no, I'll jump in here. I 100% agree. I think Paul George is the thing, guys. Is health is the only detriment to this. I know with the age, but listen, he played almost an entire season last year. No injury issues as far as last year, and the way his game fits as a wing player who does not need the ball in his hands, a guy who can shoot at a high percentage, an accurate percentage. He's exactly what you asked for. And I love what the Sixers have done this offseason. And I'm going even as far back as the draft. Because you look and you got a young kid in the draft who makes even more sense for the way this team is starting to line up, who can catch and shoot the basketball. He can get it off at a quick clip and he can drop it at a high percentage. Right? He doesn't need to create his own shot. He's going to be there for Tyrese to be able to do what he does. As far as the second unit as well. Or if it's Kyle Lowry or whoever else ends up coming back. Then, again, you mentioned Andre Drummond, huge comeback. Love the Eric Gordon addition. Low risk, high reward. It seems like he's been in the league forever, but he's constantly been around success. And then, obviously, the Paul George addition. I know we talked about it Wednesday, and I mentioned it Wednesday. I didn't feel like it was off the board yet. There was just something weird about that situation with L.A., and I think everybody assumed a sign-in trade was the way that they were going to go so he could get that extra year. And the reality is, guys, and I can't blame them, the Clippers didn't want to trade him in the conference, in the division. So Golden State was kind of unless they got absolutely blown out of the water, wasn't going to happen. This is the logical fit. He fits here. And I don't think they're done yet. I think a Marcus Morris is very possible. Tom, I know you love him. I love him. And a Philly guy. Would love to have him back and Kyle back, and then let's see what we got. Let's roll.
Agree. Luke, what do you say?
I'm not the biggest Paul George guy. But I'll say this. I think given the blank canvas, I think this was the best thing they could have done, given salary, how much they value stars. This is the best thing they could have done for the blank canvas. Now, are you a fan of the blank canvas thing? Whole other discussion. We don't need to have it because it's what they did. Whatever. We'll leave it at that. I'll say I think that the biggest dictator of Paul George's tenure that isn't being talked about enough is what he's going to do when Embiid's not on the court. Because as bad as Tobias was as a fit next to Maxey and Embiid, even when he had those two guys on the court, he was giving you nothing at a $40+ million salary when he was off the court. So Paul George's tenure and the reason they wanted to get a star is going to come down to simply how good are you in those 20-ish games when Embiid doesn't play in the regular season. I get it, they have Andre Drummond, that's great, but they need him to step up too. More importantly, though, when you are a minus 47 or whatever it is in playoff time when Embiid's off the court, what is he going to do in those minutes when Embiid's not on the court next to Tyrese Maxey to keep us alive? Because we can talk about a healthy Embiid all day long, and whether or not he'll stay healthy, that's a whole other discussion. But as long as Embiid's on the court, I don't care if you are going up against Boston. Even as hobbled as he was last year, they were statistically way better than the Knicks even were. So if Paul George just gives you something when Embiid's off the court, that's already a major win. That's what the tenure is going to come down to. So I guess I agree because I think that this puts them in a right position moving forward to be better than Boston. This is the best move they could have made. But we definitely have to sit back and wait to see what they do. There's a whole lot more for them to do.
I do want to just add to this as well, though, Luke. The deficiencies that this team had was shooting and rebounding. And they went out and they addressed those things. They brought back, I think, if there's one single guy that you bring back on this team, I think we all around the table for weeks said Kelly Oubre's the guy if you pick one. So I'm just looking at the way the team is coming together, and I see the comment. I saw the comment a few ago. Thank you, Drew, for doing all that you did to help us, by the way. But the comment that was before where somebody said that, the additions of a Drummond and bringing Oubre back, they like the George signing even better. I agree. And the draft pick, because, again, this kid doesn't have to be that number one guy. And the thing that we have to keep in mind, too, with this new CBA is hurting so many teams, and it's been talked about ad nauseum today by Brian Windhorst. So I have so much respect because he understands the reason this works for the Sixers, and they were able to still do the quote-unquote super team despite everything, is the fact that Tyrese Maxey at a 21st overall draft pick panned out to a superstar level, and his salary is so low. That the Sixers are not only able to go out and get a Paul George, and the last thing, remember here, they've been talking about this for the last 2 days. Like, Daryl Morey puts his mind to something, he goes and gets it. He's had his eye on Paul George since the last trade deadline. They knew the rumblings then that Paul George may not be coming back to LA, and he was very real possibility being there. So this blank canvas, we can talk about it. Like you said, we'll talk about that probably on Wednesday a lot more thoroughly. But if it's a blank canvas and he had a vision, that vision is coming out absolutely perfectly right now, like Bob Ross is painting it.
Yeah, listen, I think it's the best big three in basketball. So right there, back to the poll, does it make you closer than the Celtics? Absolutely. Now it's what you do with everything else. And with the three things they did so far, even a fourth thing in terms of a draft pick, right? With the three things they did so far, like Chin said, it makes me like it a lot better, right? With having Drummond back, bringing Drummond back over here, bringing Oubre back, which we knew was somebody we really needed. Okay, and you start adding that, and Eric Gordon. Not that I'm crowning Eric Gordon, right? But your ability to add on to that big three is the most important part of it. You saw what Phoenix did last year; they didn't add on to it, right? They were extremely top heavy and nothing else at all. Nothing else at all. I think that we're a lot different. And I'm not the biggest PG guy, but he makes us a whole hell of a lot better than we were yesterday. And
Well,
that's the
and
fact.
I think you're right, Tom. But we also have to consider, right? We looked at what Ben Simmons was. You looked at what James Harden was. James Harden took the ball out of Tyrese Maxey's hands. When you look at what Paul George, as far as a big three, brings to the table, the three of these guys in their game, the core of their game, are actually a perfect mesh. All things healthy. I'm not talking health. We can talk that through till we're blue in the face. But in terms of on what they bring to the court, these guys are spot on, lined up to be exactly what it's supposed to be. And again, Tyrese Maxey is the X factor here. And that's, I mean, extending him. And for everybody out there, they're going to fill their roster. Just keep in mind that the fact that he got his extension does not mean that they're not going to be able to make other moves. They've talked about that, because they own his rights, they can go over the cap. He'll be the last official signing, pen to paper, until they fill the roster out first. So they're not done yet just because they extended him either. Because I've heard people thinking that as well.
Yeah, so the moves that they can now make, to break it down for everybody, I think it's pretty clear out there among everyone in the league, and especially local reporters, and just the hints the team's given out through signing Drummond, drafting Bana, and all these guys. Paul Reed's not going to be on this team. His contract isn't guaranteed. So there's two things they can do. They can cut him and try and sign somebody who is a free agent for $8 million, or given the CBA and the rules there are for trading now, they can trade him for a guy who's making no more than $15 million. So what I think, especially bringing Paul George, what that allowed you to do is keep the draft picks. So now you can attach that $8 million with the draft picks that have not been traded and go out and sign or trade for a guy who's limited to $15 million per year. That kind of brings me to, and I'm sure other names will surface as we go along, a Dorian Finney-Smith. This goes back to what Daryl Morey said in his press conference after the draft. He said an interesting player was offered to move down. And he said afterwards that interesting player could very well be available after the draft. There's no reporting on this at all, but kind of context clues, in my opinion, that player makes a lot of sense for him to be that interesting player that was offered there. I kind of see an overlap in them selling, wanting to tank, not be so great, expiring contract. Dorian Finney-Smith would be a perfect fifth starter next to Oubre, Maxey, Embiid, and Paul George. Perfect.
And if I'm another name I've seen out there as well is Gary Trent Jr. I don't know how we feel about him, but it's an interesting name that's thrown out there as well in terms of a guy who could be added to this roster.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I saw something last night. He doesn't have a market. So the way the CBA is now, they're actually, as much as they think they're making guys money, they're really losing guys like him a ton of money because they have teams can only go over the cap for certain exceptions. So you either have a $12 million exception, which you saw Golden State just pay Melton with, or you have the $8 million extension that we paid Kelly Oubre with. So teams are really valuing those two things. And unless he gets one of those, which it's seeming more and more likely he's not, he's going to have to sign a minimum contract somewhere. So that's a guy that you could get easily coming off your bench for the same amount of money you did Eric Gordon.
You're right. I mean, there's so many options. That's a great thing in talking about, like, options. To Colin's point or question, what's up, Tom and crew? Just popped in, and you guys agree or disagree. Well, we agree to the poll, and you can vote on it. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Paul George is a missing piece the Sixers needed to dethrone the Celtics in the East. We all agree. There's all caveats with that. Obviously, Joel's health is the biggest factor, and what they do with the rest of the roster. But the way they started, it's been a home run. I mean, Daryl Morey's he's done a fantastic job. I can't complain about anything. Like, I can complain today Kelly Oubre signed somewhere else, right? Then you would hear like, all right, well, now we're top heavy. We have nobody else that can fill it up. You don't want that. That's what the Suns were. The Suns were top heavy. Nobody else on that roster could score. Nobody. So if you didn't get 110 from those guys, you were not winning. The difference here is you're going to get your top heavy guys that can score for sure, but just Kelly to start gives you more scoring. Now, Eric Gordon, he played there, so you can't even count it, right? Because he was there with that crew. But Kelly gives you that automatic scoring that there wasn't a guy on Phoenix that can score like he can, and I'm not crowning him. Makes sense? I'm just telling you, there's a guy on Phoenix's roster last year that can fill it up like he possibly could. So that's where a big difference is.
I think what's really important here too, right? And it's obviously how things fell, but the importance of getting an Andre Drummond right at the start of free agency, because one of the teams that you're going to be competing heavily with is New York, who undoubtedly, with Hartenstein signing over in OKC, they would have been hard on Drummond. Not even worried about the points from the center position, but they have nobody to rebound. It's Mitchell Robinson, and that's it. And dude can't stay healthy. No. And there is not a lot of center options out there. They're not really in much of a position as far as making trades. So it's going to be really interesting now to see what New York does to fill that spot. So even going outside of Paul George and all, going out and striking and getting an Andre Drummond, a guy they went after, who, by the way, Chicago are morons, who could have traded him to Philadelphia for something at the deadline. They wanted to compete, and now he went to Philadelphia for nothing anyway. Just, again, another really smart move by Daryl Morey. And, again, I'm telling you, as far as Luke says with painting an open canvas, he's fucking Bob Ross right now, and he's doing a great job.
He is, and this is what we talked about, right? Like I thought that he's done a better job than a lot of people think he has.
I'm with you, me and you. Right? I think everybody else is on him.
We're dying on that hill, and I'm not crowning him. Like, keep this in mind. I'm not telling you that, oh my God, he's done a great job. The stuff he's moved away from alone has been a great job. The fact that you can get anything back. So you think about it. Somebody said in the chat too. We traded James Harden for Paul George and 3 firsts. I mean, like what? Or what was it?
Can we pause there for a second? Because I think out of everybody who's a free agent, all the teams, and by far the biggest loser in free agency is James Harden. Because the underrated aspect of this is that he called Daryl Morey a liar, right? And everyone was talking about, oh, Paul George is talking to certain guys and you hear things, whatever. He lost his second best teammate to us, albeit, guess who has their first round picks? Hello. So, I mean, he's the biggest loser here by far.
Luke, this team's not only set up to win right now, they're set up to win over the next 5 years.
Well, I don't think they have that first round pick. I don't think they're going to use that and pick it. I think they're going to.
Well, regardless, with Maxey,
right?
Even with Maxey, you have 2 ways to go, right? You have 2 different ways to go here, which I think is a great position to be in. And bringing him back and getting him an extension it's just even better. It's just even better. I'm excited. I'm excited to be a Sixers fan today. You know, we're the talk of the offseason right now. And Daryl Morey went and got the guy he wanted. So, you know, and this wasn't trading for a guy, right? This wasn't having to go trade Ben for Harden. This was, hey, straight up, this is the guy I wanted. There was nobody tying my hands in any way. I can go out and do exactly what I want to do. And then we find out if it works or not.
Last question. I know we're going to be hopping off in a minute. You brought up a name. I'm telling you, with the way this team is constructed, if he's bought out and you can get him in a minimum, I'm looking at Ben Simmons and bringing him back defensively in that second unit. I'm telling you.
No.
There's certain things
you can't come back and do. Even if I really wanted to do it, which I definitely don't want to do it, he'd have to get bought out to get here. So I don't see that happening either. But I think he's
a strong candidate to get bought out.
That's a lot of money to buy somebody out.
We're having a good day. Let's not do this. What are we doing?
You're right. I know. You're right.
You can say 100 different names. Like, we're going to bring the loser back into the organization, and we're going to go and an immediate, like, the media problem that creates. Like, there's way too much. It's not bringing like Andre Drummond here after Embiid calls him out. Like, this is way more than that. But I don't know. You guys are obviously excited, and we should be excited.
I'm very pumped for Andre to be back. He's the only legitimate center, in my opinion, at a decent point in his career that the Sixers have ever had behind Embiid. And he could still grab 20 rebounds in a 12-minute clip.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's a rebound a minute guy. So we talk about Embiid's a point a minute guy, Drummond's a rebound a minute guy. It's sort of where he's at for his career, which is pretty crazy. Like over the last few years when he hasn't got a ton of minutes. You know, I think when he was with us, I'm not gonna say he's total a rebound a minute guy, but he's pretty close to it.
He had one game with us. His first tenure, where I think he played 14 minutes and he had 21 rebounds. Mm-hmm. I think it was like 8 or 9 points and 21 rebounds. Dude's crazy.
Like, did he get that many? Matt, we don't think Reed will come back.
No
so,
chance. I would
which
be
is good.
I'd be genuinely shocked if he came back. Genuinely shocked. But
Which
the
is
other
really
point
good.
is, yeah, the other point is, and it's the point I've been making all summer, they still need to get more athletic. And I know it's hard to be the Debbie Downer and all this when all this good news is coming out. They're not nearly athletic enough as is, even if they bring back Kyle Lowry and kind of the guys that were already on this roster. They need to get more athletic to match the wings in New York and Boston. They also need to help rebound with around Embiid. I get it. Drummond's great, and he's going to help you when Embiid's off the court. But as far as Embiid being off the court, he's asked to be the weak side help defender. He's asked to protect the rim. And just because he's 7'2", people also think he's supposed to rebound. No one in the history of basketball has ever done that. So they need somebody who's going to crash the glass next to Embiid. Paul George isn't going to do that, even if he's a third option or whatever. He's not going to do that. Maxey's obviously not going to do that. Oubre will do that for his position at a high level, but they need a guy who's solely going to be in the lineup to do the dirty work. And again, you can't really poo-poo on them yet because they haven't made the move, but I really want to see them do that in the coming days.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they need a power forward, and they need a 2-guard, and they need rebounding and athleticism along the wing. And that's why I would, I know he's a little older, but I would throw out that flyer for a guy like Klay Thompson too. At this point, it can't hurt. It can't hurt because you're not going to have to overpay him.
Clay just agreed with
he's in Dallas
within the last hour. So
okay. So when I was driving back, of course,
he would have fallen within that 15 million range too originally, but I believe he got a little bit more as a sign-in trade.
Okay.
And no, I will not be looking at Miles Bridges at all. Loser, not a good guy. And you see it today with DeRozan questioning the Bulls wanting to bring in a guy like Josh Giddey. We're not going to get into that, but I don't think we have enough mess, it seems, around us all the time. I don't think we need Miles Bridges.
No, we do not. All right, boys. Well, good 22 minutes is just coming on for the people. This was for the people. We were supposed to do it this morning. Didn't work out, but we're here tonight, and we rocked and rolled for you for a little bit. And we'll see what else they do. They got a lot of other stuff to do, and we'll be back Wednesday night on HUD Wednesday nights, and I'm sure there'll be more stuff that's happened by then as well, and we're really going to be able to keep dissecting this. But listen, it's a good time. It's a good time to know, hey, people do want to come here, right? That's one. And Daryl targeted who he wanted and went out and got it. And I think hopefully that's going to draw some more attraction from others, right? Where you can get guys on some cheaper deals that are shooting the win. Who knows? But overall, good day in Philadelphia. We've had plenty of bad ones, so we'll take the good ones when we can get them. And we are closer than we were yesterday to just getting out of a second round. We'll just start with that.
For sure.
Yeah, let's start with that. And I do love Bobby Portis too, Mike. We talked about him last night. Do love some Bobby Portis. So great. Everybody chiming in. We thank you. Chuck, you should be optimistic. Why would anybody not be? That's the whole thing. I think people just want to be negative. This isn't something to be negative about. We are better than we were this time. Not even this time. We're better than we were when we got knocked out of the playoffs. We're a better basketball team already. Already with just Oubre and Paul George, with those two guys, already better. So we'll see what Daryl does with the rest of his canvas. Anything else, boys?
That's it. Stay tuned. Listen, you see Wendy. Again, I'm a big Wendy guy. He's kind of nailed almost seems everything. His thing, and I think a lot of people question, are we as good as Boston or are we as good as New York? I like what he said. Give it 3 to 5 more days. The Sixers aren't done yet. They got 2 more roster spots to fill. Let's see where this team sits. I think one goes to Marcus Morris. I'll be interested to see what guard they bring in. But this is an exciting time as a Sixer fan.
I agree with you. It's not over. Wait a couple days. We'll be on Wednesday to talk about it. That's Luke Brown. That's Heel Chrome. I'm Tom Arnone. Everybody on your way out, hit the like, subscribe, follow, turn your alerts on so you're ready for us Wednesday night. And for all our Eagles guys, you got Eagles Talk on HUD coming up here 9 o'clock tonight. So set your alerts. We out.